Good day. I would like to thank you for attending this webinar about UDI label logic. In this webinar, we will spend time going over the UDI label with one of our UDI specialists who will be able to answer questions at the conclusion of the webinar. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Cornelia Rooks. I've been with Registrar Corp since 2006. I currently serve as Senior Regulatory Specialist with Registrar Corp. I helped establish the medical programs that have supported registrar's growth into the organization it is today. Before coming to Registrar, I started my career with the U.S. Government at the U.S. Public Health Service Hospital. From there, I went to FDA as a scientific reviewer and inspector within Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, followed by the Center for Drugs Evaluation and Research. Finally, I ended at the Center for Devices and Radiological. I held several positions as a scientific reviewer, branch chief, executive secretary of an advisory panel, and as division director. I'd like to introduce also Erica Medina, who has a degree in pharmacy and nursing. She currently serves as the regulatory specialist at Registrar Corp with the medical device UDI team. Her experience is in regulatory compliance for medical devices. She is skilled in documentation, submissions, as well as quality systems. Today's agenda, we will first introduce Registrar Corp, followed by FDA and medical device definition. Excuse me. I would like to just briefly talk about Registrar Corp, and then we will explain what the UDI is, along with its history and benefits. Excuse me. Activities in the area of UDI and world are also worldwide, and so we'll take a look at which countries are involved in that. And lastly, we will be going over and discussing how a registrar can help you achieve compliance. So about Registrar Corp. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Registrar Corp, we are a firm specializing in FDA regulatory compliance with over 35,000 clients in over 190 countries. We have 20 offices worldwide to assist our clients in their time zones and languages. We are very proud to have a high level of satisfaction from our customers in over 20 years of service to companies in the food, supplement, cosmetic, drug, and device industries. We offer 27 different services and software options to help your firm achieve compliance with our information protected by a system that is ISO 27001 certified and backed by a team of regulatory experts totaling over 460 years of experience. Our product labeling, ingredient review, and import alert team of experienced professionals hold multiple advanced degrees in the areas of biology, chemistry, quality management, botany, and cosmetic sciences. We have reviewed over 13,000 products for compliance and take enormous pride in ensuring that our clients meet FDA's requirements. Next. The FDA's mission is to protect public health by ensuring the safety, efficacy, and security of human and veterinary drugs, biologics, medical devices, cosmetics, and food products, as well as tobacco products and products that emit radiation. The FDA achieves this by enforcing federal laws and regulations governing these products, and by providing a science-based information to consumers and patients. The regulations for the products FDA regulates are found in Title 21 of the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, or as we refer to CFR. So later, when there are citations, they will refer to the sections within 21 CFR. Next. Before you determine what is needed to comply with the UDI rule, you must determine if your product is a medical device. FDA defines medical devices as intended for use to diagnose, cure, treat, mitigate, or prevent disease in man or other animals. They are intended to affect the structure or function of the body through physical action and not chemical action. These physical and chemical actions are referred to as modes of action. The primary mode of action should be determined to indicate how the product will be regulated within FDA. So to determine if your product meets the definition of a medical device, you should define the product's intended use and indications of use. Once you have defined the intended use and indications for use of your product, you can determine if the product meets the definition of a medical device. The FDA determines product regulation by evaluating the product's potential benefits against its risks, considering scientific data on safety and effectiveness, and assessing the labeled intended use. Regulatory pathways vary by product type and risk level. For example, medical devices are classified into 3 classes based on risk, which determines the level of control required. The FDA then establishes rules, standards, and oversight to ensure the product is safe and effective for its intended use. Next. There are 3 classes, as I stated, based on risk. And the risk, based on the risk that the device poses to the patient and or the user. And this is a major factor in the class it is assigned. So class 1 being the least risky, and class 3, which carries the highest risk. Please keep in mind that some medical devices require a pre-market submission to FDA prior to commercialization. This may involve clearance or approval, depending on, again, its classification and risk. FDA, if the product isn't by FDA, if the product is not exempt from these requirements, one of which is the UDI rule, it can move ahead into commercialization if it is exempt from either pre-market clearance or approval. Before you can commercialize your product, you must comply with various medical device regulations. All 3 of the medical device classes above are subject to requirements of the UDI rule, unless an exception or alternative has been granted. Once you have determined that your product is a medical device and other medical device pre-market requirements have been met, you must then comply with the UDI rule unless accepted, as previously stated. Erica will now walk you through what the unique device identifier system, including examples of UDI labels. Erica?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Good morning. My name is Erica Medina. As Ms. Cornelia mentioned, I will be presenting you the next slides. Unique device identifier for medical device. Okay, we'll be discussing the labeler, the definition of the labeler, and if you are to be determined as the labeler, the issuing agencies. There are 3 issuing agencies that the FDA has accredited. what the good ID is, and the GMDN code. These are required in order for us to be able to submit UDIs. FDA, the unique device identifier. The FDA issued final rule on September 24th, which requires most medical devices to carry a UDI, a unique device identifier. As Ms. Cornelia mentioned, it was implemented by first device class 1, the 2, and the 3. Exemptions. She also mentioned that all are required to comply under the UDI rule unless there is an exception or an alternative. There was an alternative that had been granted in the past. However, it is not anymore since September of 2019. Distribution to a patient. The FDA is establishing a unique device identification system to adequately identify devices sold in the U.S., from manufacturing through distribution to patients. The key benefits for complying with UDI are more adequate reporting to adverse events, more effective management and device recalls, more robust post-market surveillance system to support pre-market clearance and approval, rapid and precise identification of devices, enhanced analysis of devices on the market, support a secure global distribution plan. How does a UDI look like? This is what your barcode would look like, I think. Okay, so this is your regular barcode, the rectangular barcode. Keep in mind your barcode has two identifiers, your DI and your PI. Your DI, as you can see red on your left, identifies the company. It will start with your company prefix number, followed by the production identifiers. The length of your UDI depends on all the information that is submitted into the good ID. It can be shorter or it can be longer. Production identifiers are required if your device class is 2. You are required to have 1 or more. Production identifiers are your lot and batch number, your expiration date, or your manufacturing date. When submitting to the good ID, the questions that are asked are yes or no, meaning the FDA wants to know if you will be having this information on your label. And the reason I want to go back to this, the reason you see these numbers is in your issuing agency, when you create the account, these fields will appear, and that's where you'll be able to clear in the 17, the 10, and the 21. And it just makes sense once you're in your issuing agency account. And this is another example of your barcodes. This right here to your left is your GS1 128. GS1 128, and this one right here, the QR code is your data matrix. This is what that would look like. So your GS1 128 again is the DI and the PI part, and this is what it looks like here on your left. On your right, you have the HIBIC. The HIBIC is another issuing agency that the FDA has accredited. However, HIBIC's barcode can be rectangular, but their actual G10 are alphanumeric. You will have letters and numbers on your barcode. Like I mentioned, your barcode is your DI and your PI part. It's in two parts. The device identifier, a mandatory fixed portion of a UDI that identifies the labeler and a specific version or model of a device. The PI part is, again, the lot or batch number, serial number, expiration date, or manufacturing date. These will be added if it's a class 1, remember, you're not required to add the PI part of it. If it's a class 2, you are required to have one or more. Which one? It can be a lot or a batch number. It can be a serial number, expiration, or the manufacturing date. But you are required to have one of these. So this here is the QR code that was shown in the other slide. And as you see, the QR code is the QR. However, in the bottom, you'll have the numeric part of the UDI. The expiration date, in this case, was submitted with expiration date and or lot number. If you're submitting it and you're specifying when you're submitting your UDI to the Good ID that you will have an expiration date, when submitting, you don't have to add the actual expiration date. However, your label should have the expiration date or the lot number. Okay. The radio frequency identifier is another code that is used as well. Okay. There are barcode types. As we know, we've always seen the UPC, the Universal Product Code, which usually has 12 digits and is a shorter version of a scannable code. The EAN, the European Article Number, is usually a 13-digit code. However, for the UDI, it's always a 14-digit code, always depending, again, on the issuing agencies that you have chosen. And it does include the DI and the PI part of it. Okay. And in all forms of your UDI, it is required to be human and machine readable. Okay. It's important to know that the UDI is not assigned or created by the FDA. They have accredited the 3 issuing agencies, and these are the ones that we usually have: the GS1, the Global Trade One, the HIBIC, HIBCC, Health Industry Business Communications Council, and the ICCBBA, International Council Commonality in Blood Banking Automation. Our clients usually use GS1 and HIBCC. We haven't had any clients as of now using the ICCBBA. They usually work more for human origins, which include blood and human organs. So we haven't worked with ICCBBA, but however, they are accredited by the FDA. Issuing agencies develop unique labeler codes for use in UDIs on the ISO 15459. The labeler, we mentioned, selects the issuing agencies that provides them with the UDIs. When you're in your issuing agency account, let's say it's GS1, when you're in your GS1 account, you will be provided with your company prefix, which identifies your company. They have you would be able to generate your code through there, or they can provide you the information where you can take it and generate it where in another place where you would prefer of your preference. Like I mentioned before, the issuing agencies are GS1, Global Standard 1, the HIBIC, Health Industry Business Communication Councils. These are their logos, and the ICCBBA, International Council for Commonality in Blood Banking Automations. Who is responsible for UDI? The labeler is responsible to fall under UDI compliance. The FDA defines the labeler as the person who causes the label to be applied to a device or who causes the label to be modified with the intent that the device will be introduced or interstate commerce without any subsequent replacement or modification on the label. And I'd like to say that the brand name owner of the device is the labeler. The brand name owner of the device is the labeler. Okay, in most instances, a labeler would be the device manufacturer. But again, the labeler may be a specification developer, a single-use device reprocessor, a convenient kit assembler, a repackager, a relabeler, or a private label distributor. Whichever of these functions you are doing for the device, these would make you the labeler. Not a labeler. The addition of the name of a contact information for a person who distributes the device. This would not make you a labeler just because you're adding your contact information and not changing any information on the label or modifying it. Where is the UDI placed? The UDI is to be placed on the device label, device packages, and if the device is intended to be used more than once and reprocessed between uses on the device itself, then that would require a direct marketing. If it's being reprocessed and reused. The UDI is applied to the base package and higher levels of packaging. Multiple UDIs for the same device model might be required based on the package level. Oh, sorry. Okay, so your base package should have your direct UDI. If you have 2 or 3 of your base packages in a carton, then that is considered a higher level of packaging, and that will also require its own UDI. Keep in mind, it will not have the same UDI as your base package. UDIs cannot be repeated. The Good ID will not accept it. So once you're in your issuing agency and you create that UDI, that GTIN for your base package, in that same order, you'll be able to create a GTIN for your higher level for that same base package. Okay, keep in mind UDI and Good ID. The Good ID is the unique device identification database where your UDI is submitted, and the Good ID will not accept repeated GTINs. Okay. So I just want to say that UDI is part of your barcode, but when you're in the issuing agencies, you'll see the word GTIN, which is your global trade item number. GTIN and your UDI is the same thing. It's just in your issuing agency, GTIN is the word you'll be seeing. Okay, it's important to place the UDI in human readable, plain text, and machine readable. The AIDC, automatic identification and data capture, on the label and packaging for certain devices and the device itself. If the device is intended to be used more than once and reprocessed for each use, it will be required to have direct marking. Direct marking can be an easily readable plain text as well. What does reprocessing mean? The FDA defines reprocessing of medical devices as the process of cleaning, disinfecting, and sterilizing used medical devices so they can be safely reused. This involves several steps to ensure that any contaminants such as blood, tissue, or other biological materials are thoroughly removed and that the device is safe for use in subsequent medical procedures. These are the devices that require direct marketing. Shipping containers. For UDI regulars, shipping containers do not require UDI barcodes. So you have your base package, you have your higher level of packaging. These do require UDI. However, the shipping container itself does not require UDI labels. How many UDIs are required? Okay, so it's important to keep in mind that each model, each version of your device, if it changes in sizes, in colors, anything different in it requires its own separate UDI. If you have large gloves and small gloves, each size requires its own UDI. A company may require multiple UDIs for a single type of medical device. Separate UDIs are necessary when there are variations and attributes such as size, color, material size, style, or package configuration. It's per model. If you have several models of a medical device, the FDA requires that each model must have its own unique device identifier. Each device label and package must include a UDI in both human and readable machine. Readable. If the device is intended for multiple uses and is reprocessed before each use, as mentioned again, it is required to have a direct market on itself. Okay. The UDI is required on each level of packaging, which is the individual and the boxes, which again, those are the higher packaging levels. Okay. I wanted to go, okay. This is a description of what your base package and higher packaging levels might look. This would be considered your primary DI if it's sold as one. So your base package is considered your lowest level of distribution. If you're able to sell one device, then that is your lowest level of distribution, and that would be considered your primary DI. If you're also selling a box of your base package, like let's say 10 of the primary DI into a box of 10, 30 in this case, it says 30, then that is a higher level of packaging. Then you have another case with 10 or 20 of these, that is a second higher level of packaging. This sometimes can be a little confusing. However, we were always able to meet with our client and explain it thoroughly. So just keep in mind, your lowest level of distribution would be your primary package, your primary DI. Okay, so here we're discussing how many UDIs are needed per models. A patient, an example here, a patient gown comes in 5 different sizes, right? We have small, medium, large, extra large, and extra, extra large. Each size comes in 4 different colors: white, blue, purple, and green. Each color has 2 styles variation, with or without pocket. Each gown comes in 3 different materials: cotton, polyester, and prep paper. So all of this would require you to have 120 UDI barcodes based on the model, the size, the color, the variation. Each of those are required to have their own unique device identifier. Okay. And this is just explaining the higher packaging level. 5 or 10 per pack, 240. This will require the higher packaging level. Total barcodes needed for patient gowns, 360.
Thanks, Erica, for walking us through a basic label and the other labels for UDI system. We have a better understanding of the label for UDIs. I would like now to discuss exceptions, exemptions, expired, and current for the UDI. Next slide. In 21 CFR 801.30, it provides general exceptions for UDI labeling requirements to certain categories of devices. The device within one or more of these exceptions is not required to bear a UDI, which we've said there were these exceptions. A labeler of a device identified in this particular citation is not required to request an exception from the FDA. For example, a Class 1 device that FDA has by regulation exempted from good manufacturing practices requires under the requirements of 820. Under 21 CFR 801.55C, the FDA will consider granting requests for an exception from a UDI requirement if the requirement is not technologically feasible. We expect such situations will be rare. The FDA does not consider exception requests that are based on reasons other than technological infeasibility, including but not limited to a financial burden or claims of few or no adverse events. Labeler considerations are in order to establish a system to adequately identify medical devices through distribution and use. The FDA expects that the labels of almost all devices are capable of bearing and should in fact bear a UDI on the label unless accepted. Under 21 CFR 801.55C again, the FDA will consider granting requests for exception from a UDI requirement if the requirement is not technologically feasible, as I stated previously. Labelers may need to address these issues of inadequate label space or unique packaging that may create challenges to having the device label bear its UDI in both easily readable plain text and AIDC forms. In response to labeler requests or on FDA's own initiative, the FDA may grant an exception or alternative if an exception is appropriate. So earlier, prior to 2023, next slide, FDA allowed the use of national drug codes or national health related codes on medical devices. And these numbers were created using FDA assigned labeler codes. But however, after September 24, 2023, the FDA no longer permits the use of these numbers or on newly manufactured medical device labels. After that date, they must use the UDI system. Next. Soft contact lens labelers. Because of the industry practice to assign a different device identifier to each prescription, this exemption is in effect until 1 year after FDA states a guidance. And this will develop and fully integrate the technical solution into the Good ID production system, provide any necessary updated technical specifications to affected labelers, and notifies industry that the extension will expire through emails to industry communication via trade associations or via the UDI website. And here are the product codes listed for those soft contact lens labelers along with the regulation numbers for you to look up. General exceptions. We've mentioned several of them, and so we just want to go over those again. There are several points to keep in mind for Class 1 exempt devices. They do not need to include the production identifiers in their UDIs. If they are exempt from good manufacturing practices, no UDI is needed. Class 1 with UPC codes are deemed to meet all UDI labeling requirements. Medical devices solely used for veterinary use do not need UDIs. However, if they are used for humans, they do require UDI. Customs and investigational use only devices, no UDI is needed. Single-use devices distributed in a single package, not intended for individual commercialization, also do not require UDI. The rule also does not extend to devices solely used for research, teaching, and not intended for clinical use. U.S. devices only intended for export only and also for shipping containers. Next slide. There are general exceptions for consumer health products. Next slide, Erica. For consumer health products that are 510K exempt. Class 1 devices sold directly to consumers, OTC, online, and in a brick and mortar store, and do not fall into any of the categories we have previously identified. FDA will use its enforcement discretion for Class 1 consumer health products, even if they require a UDI on the label or packaging. Next slide. Yes, not consumer health products if, again, they're Class 1 reserved, restricted devices, and in vitro diagnostic devices, implantable devices, life-supporting or life-sustaining devices, or certain devices distributed to professional healthcare facilities and intended for use by the healthcare professional only. Next slide. Do components and accessories require UDIs? First, in the UDI system, we should define component. A component is any raw material, substance, piece, part, software, firmware, labeling, or assembly, which is intended to be included as part of the finished, packaged, and labeled device. A component as well as replacement components are not finished devices. they are not cleared or approved independently from the finished device. Therefore, they do not need a UDI. On the other hand, an accessory is a finished device that is intended to support, supplement, or augment the performance of one or more parent devices. An accessory may be cleared or approved as a separate device, but keep in mind, if an accessory is packaged and sold with a parent device as a device system, the system label would be required to have its own UDI. But the label of the accessory as packaged in the particular situation would not be required to bear a separate UDI. If an accessory or replacement accessory is individually labeled, packaged, and or intended to be sold separately, it requires its own UDI. Next slide. Software as a medical device or standalone software. FDA and the International Medical Device Regulators Forum, which is a group of medical device regulators from around the world that have voluntarily come together to harmonize the regulatory requirements of medical products that vary from country to country. The forum has defined the term software as a medical device to be software intended to be used for one or more medical purposes that perform these purposes without being part of a hardware medical device. This type of software was previously referred to as standalone software, medical device software, and or health software, and can sometimes be confused with other types of software. All software as medical device, whether packaged or unpackaged, would require UDI system. Next slide. So does software need to be labeled with a UDI? Yes. Standalone or software as a medical device, whether packaged or unpackaged again, must provide its UDI through either or both of the following: an easily readable plain text. And this text should be displayed whenever the software is started and or displayed through a menu command. Software as a medical device that is distributed in packaged form is subject to the same UDI labeling requirements as any other medical device. The device label and device package must bear a UDI in plain text and AIDC formats. Software as a medical device that is distributed in both packaged and not packaged form may be identified with the same identifier, while those that are not distributed in packaged form must convey the version number of its production identifier. Next slide. Next slide. Convenience kits and trays. For the purposes of UDI, a convenience kit is two or more different medical devices packaged together for the convenience of the user. It is intended to remain packaged together and not to be replaced, substituted, repackaged, sterilized, or otherwise processed or modified before being used by the end user. Co-packaged are products that are packaged together in a single container that is not unwrapped or unsealed prior to use by the user. Medical procedure kits, which may be considered a convenience kit, may have one or more devices packaged together for a medical procedures. Next slide. For the convenience kits, Next slide. Individually or individual devices packaged within the container do not require UDI labeling. As long as the UDI label is on the container of a convenience kit. An example would be a first aid kit, which is considered a convenience kit that has components packaged together. An example of a kit that is not a convenience kit would be a collection of non-sterile, reusable instruments that are removed from their original packaging for sterilization and not intended to remain in the packaging without sterilization before use. Next slide. Now we will go over what we have discussed today. Next slide. Implementation roadmap for UDI compliance. All device labelers must obtain DUNs or DUNS numbers as they are used to identify the organization and good ID. RSC can obtain these numbers for you. A device labeler is required to identify global medical device nomenclature code for each device identifier. UDIs have device identifier and a production identification number. The DI must be issued by an FDA accredited agency, determined by production information, such as the number. A separate UDI is needed for every version of each device. Registrar Corp can help you be your UDI reg contact, and RC or Reg Corp can also submit the good ID as well as update your label with UDI. All right, we will talk briefly about, next slide, UDI requirements in other countries. Next slide. UDI requirements are rapidly growing throughout the world, as we can see here. Here are the various countries that already have requirements for UDI in the first column, as well as those countries which are either in preparations or will soon have requirements in place. The first column are all the countries that we currently that are currently requiring, as I stated, and then the others will very soon be in place. Next slide. Now we will briefly go over how registrar can help you with medical device requirements. Next slide. For all your medical device services, we offer an array of services that can ensure your products are compliant, starting with issuing labeling that meets FDA's requirements, and filings such as registrations, listings, good ID, and electronic MDR medical device reporting submissions. We act as a point of contact for companies as an official correspondent for all firms and U.S. agent for non-U.S. firms. We have an amazing portal that helps communicate changes or confirm that there are no changes when it comes time to renew your submissions with FDA. It is known as Registrar Hub, and it also encompasses other amazing software, Comply Hub, that will alert you if your firm is named on import alert, or simply have centralized place to review your company's history. We have also added assistance for Health Canada for Class 1 devices and medical device establishment license. So if you are shipping to the US and Canada or to the Canada, contact us. We'd be happy to help you. So now we will open it up for questions. Erica will be happy to answer some of your questions, and I would like to thank you for your time through this presentation. Erica?
Yes, I'm here. We only have like 2 questions. One is asking if, okay, it's important to know that all UDIs or barcodes must be human and readable. They must be scannable. They must be human and readable in order to fall under compliance. Whether Q will merge with. We are not aware yet if they will merge in 2026. However, once, yeah, we have that. If it is GMP exempt and it falls under in 2026, we still don't know. The FDA has not mentioned anything on that. Any other questions that you guys might have, and add it to the question inbox? What are the other ways people that check these? Okay, so I can go back. The three accredited issuing agencies are GS1, HIBIC, and ICCBA. Most our clients use GS1 and HIBBC. The GS1 is numeric, the HIBIC is an alphanumeric. For this, you'll have to, once, in our case, our clients have to create an account. Once you create an account with them, they automatically assign you a company prefix number. This number is going to always be in the beginning of your UDI, identifying your company. What would also that I didn't mention, I wanted to explain about your GMDN code. That's the Global Medical Device Nomenclature. This code, you're also required to create an account with them, with the GMDN agency. This is just what is used to submit your UDIs. They provide you with a 5-digit code that best describes your device. Okay. That was for Emma Hollow West. Okay, so Register Corp assists you with submitting your UDIs. The client is required to create their account in the issuing agency, whichever one you choose of your preference, and that's where you go in and get your GTINs. Once we have your Good Idea account, we provide you a spreadsheet where you'll be able to enter your GTINs and your product information. We do not create the barcode for you. Within your issuing agency, you'll be able to create it if you choose to generate your barcode with them, or if you have another agency that generates the barcode for you. But I know that GS1 gives you the option to generate it with them. I'm not sure if HIBIC does. Okay, Cheyenne is asking to go over the UDI label briefly. I'm going to take the slides back to the image. Okay. So just for the person that asked before, Emma, these are the 3 issuing agencies. And okay. All right, for the person, the UDI label, the barcode is part of your label. the barcode goes on your label. That's what I want to be clear. It's not your whole label. Your barcode goes on your label. So right here on your left, you have the GS1 128 barcode, which is your regular rectangle barcode. On the bottom, you can see the QR code, which is in GS1. It's called the GS1 data matrix. And on your left, you can see it's the HIBIC. We provided you these two because these are the two that we most work with. HIBIC will be an alphanumeric barcode. However, these go on your label that contains your company information and if you have expiration dates or whatever other information you have, your barcode goes on your label. That was for Cheyenne. If you have any other questions. What's the timeline? How long it takes for a submission? Approval. Okay, so Emma again. Once we receive your completed spreadsheet, we can submit. It depends on how many UDIs you have for submission. If it's a total of 5, 10, 20, up to 50, maybe we can submit it that same day. If it's more than that, then it can take 2 to 3, 4 business days. It just depends on how many UDIs you have for submission. However, the published date, they won't be viewable on Access Good ID for you or the public 7 days after they've been submitted. So once you submit it to the Good ID, you're considered to be compliant. I hope that answered your question, Emma. So there's 2 types of barcodes. Yes, yeah, UDI is worldwide. Yeah, there is GS1 in Europe as well. I answered this one. Can we see? Yes. Okay. Oh, what is the meaning? Okay, this is for Jan Kwan. You asked what are the parentheses, the 17. This will only make sense. Let me go to that. I think you can see it here on your left, there in parentheses. That makes sense when you're creating your GTIN on your issuing agency account. So at the end, once you've created the GTIN and everything, it's going to ask you if you have production identifiers. Remember, we mentioned class 1 devices do not require production identifiers. However, class 2 and over, class 2 requires at least one of these. So in this case, there are production identifiers, and that's what the 21 and the 10 would account for. Either that specific UDI has a lot or batch number, expiration, or manufacturing date. However, me saying it's the 17 or the 10, I can't specifically say which one it is, except when you're actually in your issuing agency creating and working with the GTIN, that field will show, and that's where you'll be able to enter that information. I hope that makes sense. It's just when you're in your issuing agency and you're on that end field and it's asking you if you will have the lot or batch number, expiration, or manufacturing date. That's the field that you're gonna enter there, and that's just what it means for that.
Erica, I think we've run out of time, and I thank you so much for clarifying and answering the questions that were raised. Can you put the last slide back up again?
Sure.
So people who have additional questions will be able to contact us, and feel free to do that. Again, we thank you for your attention today. and hope you'll join us, Registrar Corp, again for another webinar on different topics. Thank you.
Okay, there it is.
Okay.